You guys, last night, NBA Finals Game 1, the Celtics beating the Warriors at their own game. Look at this on the left. So Golden State was in complete control after opening the third quarter, very similar to how they opened the game, and fuego. But in the fourth, Boston hits its first 7 threes. They were 9 for 12 from long distance in the frame. Part of a 17-0 run in nearly 5 minutes of game time. Like, the Celtics stole this one. In a game, by the way, that Jason Tatum shot 17% from the floor. Banana land. I'm Emerson Latte. Welcome to The Sweat, everybody, presented by DraftKings. We're going to dive into Nhl Conference Finals. We got the Rangers and Lightning in Game 2 tonight. Also, top plays in the Diamond and around NASCAR coming up. But right now, we're talking hoops. We got DraftKings contributors. We got Jeff Pratt here. We got Matt Meiselman here. Gentlemen, let's start with our Fantasy Player of the Week presented by Supercuts. And of course, it was Al Horford, the 15th-year big man who turns 36 today, went for a team best 26 points, matching his jersey number in DK Fantasy points with 42. But even more impressive, since entering the game in the fourth quarter, oh man, at the 6:22 mark, 6:22 to go. Look at this. Boston trailing by 1. He drops 11 points, including 2 of his career-high 6 triples. What impressed you the most here about this seasoned vet last night, Jeff?
Listen, what I've loved about Al Horford, not only last night, but throughout this playoff run, is he recognizes that this might be his only shot. He played in 141 playoff games to get to the NBA Finals. And when he finally arrived, the moment wasn't too big for him. By no means am I expecting another offensive explosion. He's not going to hit 6 threes again. He never hit 6 threes in his career up until this point. But the fact is, the moment is not too big for him. He stepped up when the Celtics needed him and when the studs were not producing. I am just thoroughly impressed with Al Horford. Happy early birthday. Gave a great birthday present to himself last night.
Right, Maddie? I mean, Jeff just said it. It's been a lengthy finals wait for Horford. How much do you like his chances here to do it again in Game 2 on Sunday night?
Well, yeah, we could spend an entire show just praising Al Horford.
It's incredible.
Basically just doing whatever the team needs him to do, right? Like, he's such a versatile player, whether it's rebounding and passing the ball out to an open guy or hitting his own shot, which I guess, yeah, he's just figured out how to shoot threes really, really well in this year's playoffs. As far as like Game 2, I feel bad. I want him to do this every night. So he can't really. I mean, it would be cool if he could make 6 threes a game, but no, I think into Game 2, we should expect him to play well throughout the series, but I think the Warriors will probably stop leaving him wide open, and maybe we see a bit different of a Game 2 from him, but he'll be out there playing tons of minutes, contributing in whatever way he can, because he is one of the best players on this team. He's had an unbelievable season. He's been even better in the playoffs. We shouldn't expect all this shooting every night, but Al Horford's going to be great in this series, and hopefully he can bring home the championship.
Yeah, they focus so much on Tatum and Brown and challenging the Celtics role players to step up, and obviously Al Horford did, and then there was Derek White. But what else surprised you last night here, Maddie? Obviously there was Tatum struggling to make buckets, but I'll give him this. The dude recorded 13 assists, setting a new record for the most by a player in his first NBA Finals game, and those assists led to 35 Celtics points.
So I'll start with that. I've got one more, but yes, the way Tatum played and also the way he stayed in the game despite not shooting well. I think the play that stood out to me was when he missed the top of the key 3 late third quarter. The Celtics were down 15, and then he went in and stole the ball from Jordan Poole, passed it to Brown for a layup. Like, he was still playing as hard as he could despite the fact that he couldn't hit a shot, and the 13 assists were incredible. But speaking of guys who played hard, Peyton Pritchard in the fourth quarter scored 8 points, had 6 rebounds, and like they were some of them were fairly contested rebounds, but he also locked down Steph Curry to the point where Marcus Smart didn't play for most of the fourth. Like, Pritchard had some good shooting games against Brooklyn in the first round, but that was an incredible performance. Like, I think if you could have asked Steve Kerr what's the best matchup you could get at any point in this series, it's probably Pritchard trying to check Curry. And Steph did nothing in the fourth quarter. So Pritchard really, to me, was a huge difference maker. And I don't know if we see that again in this series, but I was very surprised just to see how well he played in this game.
Yeah, after 21 points in the first quarter, Steph Curry did just kind of disappear, and you got to give the Celtics credit for that. Jeff, what was your biggest takeaway? You got something on the Warriors side here?
My biggest takeaway definitely wasn't on the Warriors side, but I can pivot to that because there are takeaways there. And the major one is that where is everyone besides Steph Curry?
Yep.
As you mentioned, he had 21 points in the first quarter, and then he scored 13 the rest of the way, which, isn't bad. He finished with a pretty nice night. But when you look at everyone else, who is producing? Andrew Wiggins was solid. When I looked at the stat sheet, I said, he scored more than I thought he did. But Klay Thompson just did not produce at the level that he has to in an NBA Finals game. Draymond Green took 12 shots. Draymond Green can't take 12 shots and only hit, I think it was 2 of them, if you're going to win. So you need production from other guys. Otto Porter is the one Warrior who I can say without a doubt that he performed more than I was expecting him to. He opened the night 3 for 3 from behind the arc. I was really impressed with him. But everyone else on the Warriors side, not too much. The main takeaway's got to be Jason Tatum finding a way to affect the game when he wasn't hitting. They went on a 40-13 run, and he didn't score a single point. If you had asked a Celtic fan or a Warriors fan heading into that game, if you thought there was any chance of that happening, they would say, no way. So really impressive there.
Yeah, Jeff, like Boston's attack was so widespread there that the Warriors really had nobody to key in on. It was close to like a perfect game by the Celtics last night, especially that fourth quarter. But how about this? Anything from last night, Jeff, change your opinion on any bets or market on the DK Sportsbook? So Curry here to average 35 plus in the series went from plus 3,500 to plus 2,000. Still a long shot, but could be an option there if he jumps out again to another 21-point performance in the first quarter.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. And Steph Curry is the greatest shooter who's ever played the game. But what he did last night in the first quarter was astounding, and I'm not sure it's repeatable. I was so focused on taking either Curry or Tatum to average 25 plus and for their teams to win the series a couple of games ago when we were looking at these markets. But after seeing game one, I'm tempted to say there's a lot of value in taking Jaylen Brown to average 25 plus and for the Celtics to win. It was at plus 235 last time I checked on DraftKings Sportsbook. This was never a crazy notion because he averaged almost 24 a game this year. He wasn't nearly aggressive enough in the first half last night, but in the second, we saw stretches where he was just on another level offensively. We're talking crazy layups on bigger defenders, contested middies, which is what he's always done. Finally getting it going from 3. Jaylen just showed off all the tools in his bag last night, and it was a huge momentum builder for him for hopefully the rest of the series. So I think that there's a very real chance he pushes to average 25 plus. And if the Celtics are able to win, you're getting good value there.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good point. He keyed that late run yesterday. He scored 24 points, pulled down 7 boards, had 5 assists for the Celtics. Matt, did your opinion change on anything on the DK Sportsbook after what you witnessed in game one?
Yeah, it didn't change on the Steph Curry bet. He didn't even get to 35, and the Celtics basically didn't guard him in the first quarter. So if he can't do it in that game, I don't think he's scoring 35 in a single game this series. The opinion that I have that changed, though, and it's only sort of, is in the finals props in the rebound leader market. So for player to lead the series in rebounds, I was on the slate last night with our friend Shirag, and we were talking about how Kevon Looney might get game scripted out of a few of these games, and he was the favorite to lead the series in rebounds. We were kind of talking about Horford being the guy who should be favored ahead of him, but Draymond Green played 38 minutes last night and had 11 rebounds. And Draymond hasn't really been playing that heavy of minutes throughout the playoffs, but I think now it's the finals. They're not saving him for anything. And if Draymond's going to play nearly 40 minutes a night, he's still plus 450 to lead the series in rebounds, and he's already ahead. He was plus 900 before this game, and we kind of talked about that as a good bet. I think 450 is still really good value on him. So I think Looney continues to lose some minutes. They can't guard the way the Celtics dribble, drive, and pass out and all the things that they can do with Looney guarding Al Horford. Like, he just can't stay with him on the perimeter. I think the Warriors have to go smaller. Draymond has to play more. He's going to have to rebound more. So I really actually like this a lot as a strong value for Draymond Green. Well,
Matty, over on the DFS side of things on DraftKings, so game 2 here, we know Celtics won the X Factor battle there between like Poole and Derek White. Maybe White's meteoric rise continues on Sunday. Like, who do you like as a play for game 2?
Yeah, it would be awesome if Derek White and Al Horford could just make every shot. I'm not expecting this to happen again. The thing that I do think will change that opens up an interesting DFS situation is Marcus Smart only played 30 minutes. And there was nothing wrong with him physically. It was just Pritchard was so good that Ime Udoka couldn't make a sub there. So I'm going to go back to Smart. I think that in that price range, like Draymond had a good fantasy game. Obviously, Horford had a good fantasy game. Derek White's a decent amount cheaper and had a really good fantasy game. But Smart was good too, and he did it in only 30 minutes, hitting 4 3-pointers. I think Smart should play more than that going forward in the series. So I think people might be a little cautious about Smart and assume that the minutes being lower was because of his ankle. That was clearly not the case. They need his defense most of the time against Steph Curry. He did a great job on him. Once they actually figured out what to do in the first quarter, I think Smart's minutes go back up next game. And he's open all the time because there's so much attention on Tatum, Brown, and now Horford and White. Like, you got to leave someone open, and Marcus Smart can hit threes. So I like his fantasy outlook for the next game.
Jeff, everyone was dangerous for the Celtics. Who do you like as your favorite play here for game 2 in DFS? Or maybe it's coming on the Warriors side.
It's not, Emerson. I'm sorry. I'm going right back to my guy here. Derek White is only 5,400, as Matt was saying, which is just way too low for the role he's playing in this series. We saw everything go his way in game 1. 21 points on 5 of 8 shooting from behind the arc is just insane production, especially from him. I mean, when he hit that contested 3 on Steph Curry where he was just in his face, you knew Boston was probably going to win this game. He's so pivotal to their success because of his ability to chase Steph Curry around the perimeter and make life difficult for him. But then offensively, he's also found his rhythm as of late as well. We don't need another 20-plus performance from him to return great value, but I expect a solid outing and quite a bit of minutes from him. So I think at 5,400, great value.
Yeah, and Jeff, Draymond Green downplaying Al Horford and Derek White's three-point shooting afterwards, too. It's like 15 for 23 from those guys. We'll be fine. I mean, I don't know if he was watching the same game that we were. It was pretty impressive from those two. How about favorite player prop on the DK Sportsbook for Game 2, Jeff? So Curry's point prop sitting at 28.5, and then Tatum at 27.5. Does the Boston superstar, does he bounce back?
He does. And I'm not even looking at the points prop. I'm going to points and assists. It's set at 32.5 the last time I checked. And I'm going to be honest, he could hit the over on this number with points alone. We've seen this time and time again from Jason Tatum. He responds in a huge way after he has a bad night offensively. And his playmaking was at such a high level in game 1 that if he brings even half of that, he'll clear this total comfortably. I also think there's some value in taking him to record a double-double at plus money. It was plus 285 last time I checked again. He's done it in 3 of his last 4 games, so there's absolutely some value there too.
Okay, Maddie, what do you like here for a player prop in Game 2?
Well, I like the Tatum call, but the guy I like the most isn't listed right now, so I'm going to have to pick something different.
Wait,
but just
what?
to allude to it, Derek White, his over-under was 8.5 points last game. There's no line on Derek White right now. I think that all of the odds makers have realized, like, listen, guys, we can't have a number in single digits for Derek White. Like, we're going to have to do some thinking and figure out what his points prop actually should be. So I can't pick that one, but when that comes back, I'll be interested to see what it is. But I do think taking the under on Steph Curry is a good move here. He was 27.5 before game 1. Now it's 28.5, and it's only plus 100 on the under, so no vig there. And the Celtics didn't guard him in the first quarter. And then once they figured it out, once they realized that it's not the Heat, as Marcus Smart was saying, this isn't the Heat series, like, he was never open again for the rest of the game. So I think this is going to be a really, really tough series for Steph Curry. The number's a little inflated because he had the good game 1, but it was all in the first quarter, like we've talked about. So I don't think Curry scores 28 points in this game. I think he ends up being more like mid to low 20s throughout the series, despite the fact that this is now sort of a must-win game for the Warriors. I think his scoring comes in under this.
And then overall, just what's your best bet? What's your favorite bet for Game 2, Maddie? So Warriors currently 4-point favorites, despite what we witnessed last night on the DK Sportsbook, and the total now up to 215.5.
Yeah, Emerson, you don't have to ask me this question. You already know where I'm going with this game. It's Celtics every time. Like, these lines are just terrible. The
Yeah.
Celtics are the better team. And yes, I understand that the Warriors need this game more than the Celtics do now. But the Celtics also were at a disadvantage heading into game one with less rest. And we were worried about Robert Williams. He looked fine. He's got 2 days off. Like, the rest is now neutral. That's entirely negated as a concept. These teams are in the same position. Steph Curry didn't look so great in the second half. Maybe he's getting a little tired. Like, he's much older than every Celtics player not named Al Horford. So I don't have any concerns about that anymore. And the Celtics are the better team. I just don't understand why they're +4, why they're +150 on the money line, why they're only -160 or -170 for the series. The line should be shifted more towards the Celtics. Maybe they will get there at some point. Or maybe that'll happen next season after they've already won the championship.
Oh, yeah, something you called, like months ago, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, you certainly did. Hey, Jeff, you know the Warriors are going to be desperate here, man. They can't lose 2 games at home and then be in that 0-2 hole going to Boston, where the Celtics have been phenomenal this postseason.
Yeah, they can't win this game, but I'm with Matt. I feel like there's a lot of value taking the Celtics both on the money line and giving them 4 points. I mean, how can we watch what we watched last night and not feel immensely confident that no matter the position the Celtics are in, they're going to find a way to make mid-game adjustments and make life hell for the Warriors? So I think there's a pretty good chance that this series goes back to Boston with the Celtics up 2-0. And if it doesn't, they're going to keep it close.
Yeah, right on, man. It's going to be fun on Sunday night. Thanks so much, dudes. Appreciate you. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. We do have breaking baseball news to get to right after this quick break. Joe Girardi did not last 3 full seasons as the Phillies manager. Breaking news, the team announcing this morning that he's been fired. Bench coach Rob Thompson will take over on an interim basis. Philly has lost 12 times in the last 15 games. This is their worst start since 2017. Goodness gracious. DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne, RotoWire's Eric Halterman are here. Gary, and you can't be that surprised with this move, right?
I mean, I guess not. Something needed to change in Philly. I guess you can look at this as sort of that old school mentality of, let's change the clubhouse dynamic. Let's light a fire under the boys. But honestly, I don't really know how much a manager even does in a baseball dugout in 2022. If we're just going to try arbitrary things like let's have all the Phillies relievers legally change their name so that it seems like there are different options in the bullpen, because that's probably the bigger issue than Joe Girardi being the manager or not being the manager of this team. Again, I think something had to happen.
Yep.
Like, if you just look at a team from a PR perspective, like this might appease some fans for a little bit. Like, okay, they tried something, they're doing something, but we can go to a Phillies fan and ask him how he feels.
Yeah, Eric, that's not totally his fault that he was handed like a flawed roster, like in regards to the defensive bullpen, but it's not a good thing, right? When players are openly discussing like a team's low energy here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as a Phillies fan, I'm certainly appeased. And you could say it's not his fault, but this is also supposed to be a better team than the Phillies have
Yeah.
had the past several years, and it was worse. It's not like it was a definite playoff contender, but the team took no steps forward in his 3 years, and there's really no reason to expect they ever would. I mean, what is Girardi's resume other than, hey, he won a title with a team that should have won a title 13 years ago? I was unhappy when he came in. I was actually a Gabe Kapler guy. I don't think there were many of us left in the Phillies fandom at that point, but seeing him immediately be successful as soon as he leaves and seeing Girardi do no better, even as the roster got better,
Yeah.
was pretty disappointing. So I'd love to see some guy I've never heard of in the Rays organization take over. I think that's what I'd be hoping for here.
That seems to be the style like around baseball. But I mean, the Phillies just added way too many star level talents to find themselves on the outside looking in on another postseason here. But guys, let's move forward. Let's cover the bases. Let's look ahead to tonight. Eric, first base, favorite pitcher in DFS this evening. Who's your guy?
Yeah, it's a pretty strong slate. You've got three guys over 10,000, Garrett Cole, Corbin Burns, and Joe Musgrove. I'd be really happy with any of them. Very little to separate them. And I think I'd like to pair one of them with Nathan Eovaldi, who at 8,000 really easily could be a lot closer to those other guys. 3.77 ERA on the season. And he's an interesting one if you look at his ERA estimators. By FIP, he should be all the way up at 524, but by XFIP and SIERA, he's in the low threes. And that's really because of an anomalous home run per fly ball rate. The league average in that mark is about 11%, and his career average is about 12%. This season, he's up just shy of 26%, and that's not supposed to be a number that pitchers have all that much control over. Generally, they have control over whether they keep the ball on the ground or not. But if they give up a long fly ball and it goes just over the fence versus dying at the warning track, it's not thought to be something they have a major amount of control over. So to see him be, so anomalous, more than double the league average there, really suggests that things are going to come down. Couldn't ask for a better matchup for him either. Facing the A's, one of the weakest lineups in the league at the Oakland Coliseum, which is the most pitcher-friendly park in terms of runs, second most pitcher-friendly in terms of homers. I look at that and see a guy who I'd easily pay probably $9,500 for, and he's only $8,000 today.
Gary, a dozen games on the main slate. Who is your favorite pitcher in DFS?
We got to have stupider people on here because we're always going to come up with the same answers.
Wow.
Look, I think Garrett Cole, if we're talking about like guys over 9K, probably the number one option. I think Shane McClanahan might go a little bit undervalued. I think at this point everyone knows what Shane McClanahan is, but some people might still think about a left-handed pitcher going up against the White Sox and fear that a little bit, even though like Tim Anderson's not playing, Eloy Jimenez obviously not available either. But yeah, Eovaldi's just too cheap. I don't really understand this price point. I don't get why he's just 8K. I guess it's a product of the slate being as strong as it is, but as Eric mentioned, aside from some quirky home run to fly ball ratio stuff, Eovaldi's been really good this season. He's got a 25% strikeout rate. He's barely walking anybody. That's kind of just the book on him at this point. And Oakland is like a special kind of bad against right-handed pitching in particular. They come into this game ranking dead last in baseball in slugging percentage, OPS, WOBA, and WRC plus against right-handed pitchers. They just can't hit righties. And Eovaldi's a really good right-handed pitcher, so he's just way underpriced, and I think you have to attack that tonight.
Well, by the way, producer Drew says if you want stupider people on here talking baseball, friendly reminder, Steve Buchanan joins us every Tuesday here on The Sweat. Gary, second base, best infielder on DraftKings tonight.
Speaking of guys who are questionably priced, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 4,300? I know he's been not quite 2021 Vladdy this season, but damn, I don't remember seeing him this cheap in a really long time. And this is, oh my God, I can't win with this fire alarm.
What's going? Are you okay?
I'm fine. Yes, just this got me yesterday too.
All right, I didn't know if you had bagel bites in the oven or something.
I wish.
Me too.
So yeah, Vladdy been struggling so far this season by his own standards, but does have 5 extra base hits in his last 7 games. It seems like things are starting to turn around for him a little bit. And also with Sonny Gray going on the IL yesterday, Chichi Gonzalez is starting this game for the Twins. I know some of these numbers are like Coors affected, so you can't just say this is going to continue to happen. But if you look at his numbers last season against right-handed batters, he was just absolutely destroyed. Batting average well above 300, slugging percentage well above 600. And this Jays lineup is just completely made up of powerful right-handed hitters. I think the Jays are going to score a lot of runs tonight, and Vlad's probably in the middle of it.
Eric, who's your top DFS infielder tonight?
Well, my top guy is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So I guess I'll
No
go talk
way.
about somebody else. But
Okay.
man, he's the 73rd most expensive hitter on the slate, which doesn't even have all the teams. There's, I think, 6 teams missing from the slate. There's no way he's the 73rd best hitter in the league. Even in a down season, he's still hitting the ball incredibly hard. He's hitting it on the ground a little bit too much. But despite that, he still has a 125 WRC plus in a down year. So pretty clear top guy. He could easily be 1,000 more. If you want different names for the sake of variety, a couple matchups where I might be looking to stack some expensive guys. Atlanta against Chad Kuhl in Coors Field. I think you can look at Ronald Acuna. You can look at Austin Riley as expensive options. And Houston against Brady Singer, who's actually been good in a very small sample, but over his career, he's pretty forgettable in general, I would say. Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker would get the platoon advantage against him. Even Jose Altuve has another expensive option there. So there's a couple lineups that I think look like good stacking ground if you're not just going to take the easy way and just try to use Vlad in as many spots as possible.
All right, Eric, favorite outfielder as we make our way to third base here.
Well, let's see if we can get the first one of the show where we pick different guys.
Okay.
Kyle Schwarber,
All right.
judging by Garian's reaction. Okay, we might
We're
actually
good.
talk about 2 different players in this section, so that's exciting. He hasn't had a great season. With 4,700, he's priced not quite at the top tier, but you do need a lot out of him, and I think you're going to get a lot here. He has 2 hits. Too much, 31.4% strikeout rate. Although strikeouts are something that comes with his game. His first career, he's at 28.1%. So he's not as if he's taken a major step back there. And he's actually taken a step forward in his barrel rate, which was always good. But this year, it's just shy of 18%, sitting in the 98th percentile. He'll get the platoon advantage in Philadelphia against Chase Silseth, who was an 11th round pick last year, has only made 10 career professional starts. 3 of those in the majors, including 2 against the A's. Has a pretty good ERA, but some pretty mediocre ERA estimators. Not getting strikeouts at all, just a 16.4% strikeout rate. So for a guy like Schwarber who struggles in that area, I think that's an encouraging sign. I like the matchup here, and I like his very recent run. I think he's going to pull out of a poor start to the season and be a guy who deserves to be priced in this range.
All right, Gary, and when you copy a friend's homework here, you're supposed to change it up a little bit so it doesn't look like you copied. Have at it.
Yeah, you only change it slightly, though. So I'm
Yeah,
going to stick with the
that's
same
true.
game, just pick a different team.
Oh, great.
Look, Zach Eflin's actually been really good so far this season, especially by the advanced statistics. But if there's one thing that we have learned across like a 6 or 7 year sample with Eflin, he really struggles with left-handed bats. And that's happening again this season. It's been the root of any of the struggles that he has had, despite the fact they have been fewer and far between in 2022. But Shohei Ohtani, I know we're dealing with some weird stuff with him pitching the last couple times he's taken the mound, but he does seem like he's starting to round into form when it comes to his offense. And he, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., is someone when you stare at their expected statistics, still so much better than the actual production we've gotten so far this season. But in the month of May, Ohtani, 260 isolated power, 146 WRC plus. I think he's, like I said, coming out of this. I think he's starting to become the Shohei Ohtani at the plate that we saw last season. And if I can get a premier left-handed bat going up against Zach Eflin, more often than not, I'm going to take that chance.
All right, Gary, and last one here. Bring us home. DFS value play.
Going to go back to that Blue Jays lineup, someone who might go a little overlooked in this game, Santiago Espinal, who has hit very, very well at Rogers Center so far this season. He's got a 128 WRC plus, an OPS up above 800. And depending on whether or not George Springer plays in this game, he's missed the last 2 contests due to an illness. Espinal's either going to hit leadoff, and even if Springer's back, he might still be slotted into the number 2 spot in the Jays lineup. He started hitting second. They've won 8 consecutive games. Managers tend to be a little superstitious, so I would imagine Espinal remains in the top third of the Jays lineup regardless of who's playing tonight. And considering that they have the highest implied team total of any non-Coors team on this slate, I think you want to stick as many bats in there as you can. And if one of them is $3,600, that's even better.
Eric, who's a good value play tonight?
I was pretty worried we'd be on the same guy again because I am going with a cheap guy on the Jays, but I'll go with Lourdes Griel at 2,800. He is also having a down year, but there's reasons to believe he's picking things up lately. In his last 8 games, he has a 170 WRC plus, but what I really like is 7 walks against just 4 strikeouts. Shows me he's at least seeing the ball far better. On the season, a 655 OPS isn't very good, but he does have a career best strikeout rate of 17.6%. He's hitting the ball still fairly hard in the 77th percentile, not generating a ton of barrels, but that seems like that means a few too hard of his hits are going on the ground, or a few too many of his hard hits are staying on the ground. It doesn't look like somebody who's very off to me, and it's somebody who's had plenty of success in the past. So to see him sub 3,000 against Chichi Gonzalez, who we've hit on a couple times, I think career 5.64 ERA. Yes, a lot of that was at Coors, but that doesn't look good anywhere. It doesn't strike out anybody. 13.4% strikeout rate for his career, and wasn't even all that much in the minors this season. So give me a guy who's had success in the past, doesn't look all that bad this season, and costs less than 3,000.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for the help. Appreciate it. Hope you figure everything out there with your fire alarm, Garion. We got some NHL talk coming up because Rangers Lightning Game 2 tonight. Some top DFS and sportsbook plays right after this. So the Avs ended up losing Darcy Kemper to a mysterious upper body injury, and then ended up last night, Game 2 against the Oilers, leaning on Pablo Francouz, a 24-save shutout, giving the Avalanche the confidence here to earn a 4-0 victory, a 2-0 series lead against the Oilers. Jeff Ulrich's Oilers. Jeff, can you explain what went down last night?
It was a little bit of a beatdown went down.
Yeah.
It was a really dominant performance by Colorado. They took advantage of home ice. They took advantage of the fact they were being able to switch lines on the fly and just keep the speed up against the Oilers, who, they eventually broke down in the second half of the game. I mean, it's funny because, since that offensive outburst at the start of Game 1 by Colorado, where they ended up with a 4-goal lead, there was like a stretch of basically 2.5, 3 periods where the Oilers not only outscored Colorado, but played them really close. But then it tipped back in Colorado's scales at the end of Game 2 as well. So, the goaltending for Colorado was part of the story. Obviously, he played well, but it was really just a dominant performance. The speed of the Avalanche shutting down the Oilers forwards, in the Colorado high air, I think had something to do with it too. But, can they sustain that for 2 more games, going back to Edmonton? I think it'll be a different atmosphere. I think it'll be a different situation, too, with the Oilers having last shift and things like that.
Okay, Paul, do you agree with that? Do you expect this series to kind of turn on its head a little bit once they go north of the border?
I think you'll see the Oilers' best game in Game 3. They didn't do really very much in the offensive zone. McDavid, 2 shots. Draisaitl, 3. I can't remember any great scoring chances that Edmonton had during the whole game. That speaks to the defensive structure of Colorado. So we know that they can defend a little bit. We haven't seen that ability from Edmonton, and I think they need to show that in Game 3. Otherwise, this is going to be a very short series.
All right, so we saw a little bit of goaltending there last night, and then everyone kind of expected the goalies to to be the storyline, in game one between the Rangers and the Lightning. Everyone was like, you got to captain these dudes here in DFS. It didn't really work out so well in game one. So, Paul, are you changing up your strategy a little bit for tonight?
No, I'm looking tonight to see Vasilevsky do what he does, and that's respond to a playoff loss. Until he loses one, I'm going to keep going with him in this situation. I think he's got to be the guy that you captain in this one as well, because of that legacy that he has in these situations. So until proven otherwise, go with the Tampa goalie. That's what I say.
All right, what's the showdown strategy tonight here, Jeff?
Yeah, the only thing that worries me about Vasilevsky is I think you'll see Tampa Bay. One thing I definitely think you're going to see in game two is just Tampa Bay limiting the Rangers' chances. They allowed 34 shots in game one. I don't think you'll see them get that many shots. It's just that's kind of an irregularity for Tampa to allow that many shots. They didn't allow many shots during the regular season. So, the Rangers have kind of had their number a little bit. They did really well against them in the regular season too. But Vasilevsky is definitely a captain's option for this game. If Tampa Bay wins, you could easily see like a 3-0, 4-1 kind of game where they just don't get many pucks by Vasilevsky. So he's an option. I also like going with, Kucherov or Stamkos. I mean, I think you kind of have to lean Tampa Bay. I think if the Rangers do eke this game out, it'll be really close, like an overtime win anyways. So going with the Tampa Bay studs at forward, who, obviously Stamkos and Kucherov had 13 shots between them in game one. They're getting their chances. They're going to get chances again. And Kucherov held off the point sheet, but that won't happen. That won't last for much longer. So I think Kucherov is the other option. I think you got to go Tampa Bay in the captain spot.
Yeah, well, it's interesting there, Jeff, because I want to ask you what your favorite bet is for game two on the DK Sportsbook. And I'm looking at this impressive streak that the Lightning are putting on the line tonight. So Andrei Vasilevsky and Tampa Bay have won 18 straight playoff games following a playoff loss. That's the longest streak in NHL, NBA, and Major League Baseball history. So those three major sports. And what do you know, Tampa Bay favorite tonight, Jeff?
Yeah, and I mean, it's about the same line as we had as game one, -130. So the Rangers, you could still make a case here, they're just not getting respect, even on home ice, even though they've beaten Tampa Bay 4 times in a row now. There is a case to be made here that we should just be staying on the Rangers, but I just look at Tampa. I mean, the chances were there for them game one, and like I said, they just need to clean up the defensive side a little bit. And Vasilevsky, we know, is just a goalie who's just probably going to bounce back. He does that every single time in this situation. So there's a couple different ways that I look at this game. I do like Tampa -130. I think that's the side I'm going to lean on. It feels a little bit chalky, but I don't know. I just think it's the right play here. But OT is +310. I think that's an interesting prop for this game as well. If Shesterkin keeps playing on top of his game, we could get a very, very tight game again here in game two. So I think the overtime prop at +310 for a draw after 60 minutes is actually a nice one that I'm looking at as well.
I mean, Paul, you've already said you're sticking with Vasilevsky over on the DFS side. What's your favorite bet, though? Is it on the Tampa Bay side?
Absolutely. It's on the puck line. I can't believe this line. Tampa -1.5 goals for a +200 payoff. Are you kidding me? That's easy. That's an easy pick for me tonight to be the best bet that I see on the board. I think the champs are going to show their mettle. I got ripped a little bit yesterday and the day before for my take on the first game. And I just think that, we saw what history shows. As a team coming off a game 7 versus a team coming off a 4-game sweep, the team in the game 7 situation, they win way more often than not. And rust is a big factor. Well, the rust is going to come off Tampa, and we'll see a better game from them today, a much better game.
Yeah, and to Paul's point, I really like betting Tampa to win the series. I think that's a really good prop you could look at too. They're actually the underdogs to win the series right now. Series spread is something else you could look at. So I'm kind of with Paul on this one. I still think the Lightning are the play.
All right, guys, well, let's go ahead and look ahead to game 3 between Colorado and Edmonton. Showdown salaries on DraftKings are not out yet, but is there someone you have cooking between the ears, Jeff, who you would target as your captain for that showdown? Maybe someone on Edmonton, since you and Paul both expect this series to be totally different come game 3?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think you need to play an Oiler. I mean, I do think that, this game between Edmonton and Colorado will be a little bit more like game 1, but it'll be tighter. It won't be 9-6. It could be 5-4 though, or 4-3 or something like that. So you can certainly look at the top 6 on both sides. I mean, starting with Connor McDavid, who we mentioned, like had a really sort of down game, is certainly a viable option. Connor McDavid is obviously always viable as a showdown captain, but there's so much talent down the lineup in this series that I'm not even sure if you need to do that. I think the way Nazem Kadri is playing and just the production that he had game 2, I think one edge that Colorado certainly has over the Oilers is just, their depth is just a little bit better. It's just a little bit faster. So a guy like Kadri could certainly, continue that trend into game 3. 9 shots on goal. Obviously, the chances are there. 16 shots over his last 2 games, actually. So I think Nazem Kadri is going to be like a really good value captain spot. And then you can just stack all the studs in the rest of your showdown lineup.
Yeah, Paul, is there someone you like early on before salaries are released, someone that comes to mind, a captain?
Absolutely, and I'm shocked that my buddy Jeff didn't pick an Oiler. I will, in fact, and I'll show them some love, which has been a rarity for me in the playoffs. They're going to bounce back with, I think, their best game of this series. Maybe even after it's all said and done, you'll be able to say that still. My showdown captain for this game, though, will be Zach Hyman. He's had an outstanding playoff run and has emerged as the soul of this team during the postseason. He's going to get all the high leverage minutes alongside McDavid, so I'd rather save on the salary a little bit and pick the wingman. And certainly McDavid's going to be a part of my lineup as well, because these guys are going to be on the ice together all night long, including power play situations.
All right, well, let's go over to the DK Sport.
You also get to save a bit of the budget if you avoid the Edmonton big boys in this slot.
Okay, sorry to cut you off there, Paul. Let's go to your favorite bet or lean for Game 3 over on the DK Sportsbook in Edmonton tomorrow night.
Very easy. Going over the total of 7 goals. This is going to be another goal fest. They stole my line on the broadcast. Did you see that? They put goal fest right on the introduction of the hockey game. So I've got a lawsuit going against the NHL coverage in Canada.
Hey, man, listen, they're big fans of the sweat. Come on.
Let me know how that works out.
What do you got, Jeff?
I like the overs in this one, too. I think specifically I like the Edmonton team total to go over as well. Again, they are facing a backup goalie here. And as we alluded to earlier in this segment, the Oilers just didn't really take advantage of the situation. They didn't get many high danger scoring chances. They didn't really get many great scoring chances in that game at all. So I'm not as confident as Paul in the Oilers, which is actually really weird. But I do think the Oilers are going to get some goals in this game. And I really like going over on their team total for this game 3. I think at the very least, if Colorado wants to win this game, they're going to have to get like 5 pucks in the net. So going over on the Oilers team total is probably one of my favorite bets. I do just like going over on the 7 too. I think that's good. But Oilers team total, over 3.5 goals. Again, you can play like alternate, team totals, whatever you want on DraftKings, but over 3.5 goals for the Oilers. That's one I'm going to take.
Hey, Jeff, real quick here. How will tonight's outcome between the Rangers and Lightning impact, I guess, the way you're going to approach Game 3?
For me, if the Rangers squeak this one out, and again, I think they're, if they do win this game, I think it could be like an OT game. Shesterkin makes like 55 saves. I will definitely be betting Tampa to win the series. Tampa is a team that I just, kind of just didn't write them off in the first 2 series, but I wasn't big on them. And it's just like, you got to learn your lesson at some point. I think that the Rangers are an interesting team. I think that 5-on-5 eventually, way back to Tampa's favor. So whatever happens in game 2, I'm probably going to stick on the Lightning unless I just see something, or maybe there's an injury or something. But Tampa is probably going to be the play for me going into game 3.
Paul, what about you, man?
You know what? The game tonight is way more important for the New York Rangers to hold home ice. Can you imagine if they go up 2-0? The narrative is going to be very simple. Well, Tampa hasn't really lost anything yet because they haven't lost a home game. But a loss by the Rangers will have people saying, you see, these are the defending champs, and they're defending champs for a reason. So the narrative will be easy to write either way, but it's critical tonight for the Rangers to win this game if they really have serious thoughts of winning this series.
All right, Paul, good stuff as always, man. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Jeff, stick around because we're bringing in Pierce. We got to get everyone caught up on your little NASCAR head-to-head with him, and we'll talk this weekend's race.
No, I'll try and carry that segment.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is our final block of the show, a tradition unlike any other here on The Sweat. On Fridays, we're talking NASCAR with our two NASCAR experts, Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich. They've been going head-to-head all season long. Let's get everyone caught up on their race. So Pierce leading 516 to Jeff's 366. Jeff, you had 3 straight weeks of gaining ground on Pierce, but like the Coca-Cola 600 last week, Pierce, Kyle Busch, his pick, 61 points. Jeff, you had Chase Elliott earning 21 points. I know, man. I know this is tough for you, but this week you have another opportunity to make up some ground. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go, and I think Pierce is going to make a major misstep this week and write some drivers off that he shouldn't be. So I think this is the week where I make up like 100 points.
Okay.
If that's even possible in NASCAR. I don't think it is.
We're gonna
maybe we'll say like 60.
History could be made, my dude. We are talking the Enjoy Illinois 300. So top DFS and sportsbook plays for this. It's at the Worldwide Technology Raceway in Illinois. So it should be an interesting race this weekend. Pierce, can you break it down for us here a little bit, like about this track, because it's like an in-between here with some tight turns, similar, and then a track that also has some like long straightaways. I'm confused by this place.
Well, everyone should be confused. This thing's called the Enjoy Illinois, but up until recently, this track was considered St. Louis. It was called Gateway. A company came in and bought the track for probably nothing, and then poured a little bit more money into NASCAR, and NASCAR rewarded them by giving them a cup race. The drivers don't want to race here. The fans hate this track. Wow. I mean, sorry to break it to people, like this is going to be a pretty tough, boring race to watch. But hey, from the DFS perspective, if the 19 call with Chase Elliott till he wrecked and everybody wrecked, maybe you're tired of seeing all these wrecks and you want to see the guys that you research run well. That's going to be Gateway. You want to see laps turned, you want to get rid of the volatility and randomness, then the Worldwide Technologies racetrack in St. Louis/Illinois, whatever, is a race for you.
All right, so first time the Cup Series has been here. We've seen the Truck Series, we've seen the Xfinity Series on this track. Jeff, I'll start with you. Let's talk about some DFS options that have raced here, priced over 10K as well. So Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Chastain, they've all won here at the top of DFS pricing as well. Do they have an advantage? You like them in DFS this week, Jeff?
I mean, of course I like some of these guys. They're like the best drivers in the field. But, do they have a huge advantage because they've raced here? Actually, a lot of the field has actually raced here at some point. So that's one thing. And as Pierce alluded to, it's just a short track. So what I would look to more is, where did some of these drivers have success on shorter tracks that we've seen already? I know, Joey Logano is a driver who won the Goodyear 400 on a shorter base track earlier in the year. But again, it's with it being a shorter track, you kind of say, well, maybe the skill drivers are in better shape because there's going to be less wrecks. I think Kyle Larson, just rostering Kyle Larson this week and not trying to overthink things is probably fine. I think that's a way you could certainly look at it. Going down, William Byron in one of those truck series. And, again, you want to take experience and then you go into the, just the recent form as well as, just DFS salary. Byron at 9,800, he's certainly, you're getting him for a discount. You could even double up with another one of these top drivers. And again, with the shorter track and the less likelihood of wrecks and stuff like that, I think that's something you should be doing, kind of like a stars and scrubs approach. At least that's what we call it in golf. I don't know what you guys call it in NASCAR. But for me, William Byron is definitely an interesting guy and a target this week.
All right, who do you like towards top of the pricing, Pierce? And do you think there's an advantage to guys who have raced here before over the rest of the field?
Track history is usually a stat that's not 20 years ago. I don't know if I'm going to trust that data point. Kyle Busch either. Now, you might want to trust Chastain. He did win a truck race 2 years ago. I don't think it really helps him that much. If anything, it adds confidence, but his confidence was already sky high. I like Jeff's William Byron pick. William Byron does have some recent history at Gateway, but what I really like is that his crew chief is Rudy Fugle, and Rudy Fugle spent multiple years in the truck series. He was setting up very fast trucks for the Gateway track. Byron has been one of the top drivers this season. So Byron and Chastain would be guys that I would consider if you want to kind of weigh a little bit of track history.
All right, so let's go to the top of the board. So Larson 11-3, Elliott 10-2. They haven't raced here before. They're clearly guys to target then. Pierce?
Yeah, Larson can race anywhere, and we've seen it. I mean, any surface, any new track, especially when we're going to all things being equal, right? Everyone is trying to learn things. Who can figure things out the fastest? His team figures things out the fastest. He figures driving cars the fastest. We have seen him struggle at some of the flatter tracks, but even his struggles means he's just a top 5 driver. I think the closest comparable track would be Nashville, where they raced for the first time last season, and then that first race at Nashville, which is kind of flat and kind of a short/intermediate track. He won the race. He led 264 laps. He's been incredible this season. Larson will be fine. I think Elliott will be there, but I don't think he's better than Larson.
Jeff, what do you think?
Pretty much was going to say like something similar, just not quite as smart sounding as Pierce. So, I mean, Kyle Larson definitely pretty much the most skilled driver in the race, right? Like, again, if it's a little bit of a newer track or these guys just haven't seen it lately, I mean, you expect, the best driver to figure it out the quickest. Chase Elliott, to me as well, if you just look at their performance and like how dominating they've been in certain events, I mean, it just seems like Elliott, he's not like backing his way into wins or anything like that, but he's just been in different styles of tracks and races where he's kind of had his success. So, when I was looking at both these guys, that kind of stuck out to me. I think I trust Larson more. I know he's like $1,100 more, but again, like, let's talk DFS strategy with both these guys. I think that Kyle Larson, he's probably not going to be like super under-owned, but he may not have that much ownership on him from the simple fact that he's, so far and away the most expensive driver. So we like that.
Pierce, how do you feel about Kevin Harvick as a good DFS play there in the mid-range pricing area? Because we saw him last week at Charlotte, and he's got a pretty good track history here, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's some pretty ancient track history as well. Give him credit. He has finished well recently with 3 top 10s in the last 4 races. 2 of those are top 5s. But if you look a little deeper into the stats, his driver rating is outside of the top 10. He's been very fortunate to avoid all the chaos and all the random wrecks and volatility. I am not expecting a lot of blown tires this week. I think Goodyear will bring a pretty durable tire. I'm not expecting we're going to see a lot of green flag lap turning. And so Harvick is probably a 10th place car, and that's where he will finish.
All right, who do you like in the mid-range pricing, Jeff? And is Harvick on your list?
Yeah, I mean, like, Harvick's okay, but it's kind of just like that safe pick. The other thing about him is you look at his, like, bonus points, or, like, fastest laps led. I mean, it's bare. I mean, this guy's not doing much. He's kind of just staying in it. But, again, is this really the track where you just want to go with someone who kind of plays it safe? I mean, I think I'd rather try and get up to Joey Logano, who, like I said, he's definitely more of a boom-bust driver, but had a lot of success on a shorter track earlier in the year, so you like that. Going down, I mean, I think you could even go down to like Austin Dillon at 7,500. I think he gives you a lot of the same things that Harvick did, but he's just way cheaper. So for me, like, Harvick's just actually a little bit too expensive if you're really looking, below him. I think Austin Dillon is a better value for sure with a very similar output.
All right, guys, this is it. This is the moment of truth. There's a lot of pressure on you right now, Ulrich. Ulrich, give me your favorite DFS play this week for this race. Come on.
Pierce, like, I brought up William Byron, and Pierce complimented the pick, and now he's in my head because I had a driver, and it wasn't William Byron, and now I'm like, should I pick William Byron because I'm just going to go with my first pick. I'm going to go with the gut pick. I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick this week. He was really good in that earlier race that Joey Logano won. Again, another short track. He's been really consistent. He's like one of the only top 15 drivers without a win. I'm going to go Tyler Reddick. If William Byron wins, Emerson, you may not see me here next Friday because I'll just be, I just won't be able to compose myself on there. So.
Totally understand that. Pierce, hook me up with your play.
All right, so we'll go with what the golf guys do. They typically lean on current form. That's what I will do. As I've mentioned before, the season started out weird with 3 restrictor plate races, a dirt track race, a road course race, short tracks, whatever. But over the last month, we've had 4 straight intermediate tracks. Who has been the best driver by far and away? It's not even close. It's Ross Chastain. He also has the track history at Gateway, winning here 2 years ago. And then at Nashville last season, that track that I think is comparable to Gateway, he finished second. He did have a little bit of a tire advantage at the end of that race, but he's still very fast. He's proven to be pretty fast at these types of tracks. Ross Chastain is the guy to keep it hot.
You guys are great. Both you guys are hot, and I hope you have a hot weekend. Love you guys, mean it. We got Madden kicking off here on the Dream Stream at high noon. The slate 5 o'clock with Glash, Lamarca, and Bukes. They'll talk all things sports, and then this show is back 11 o'clock Eastern time on Monday morning. Everyone have a safe and happy